Hi everyone, I'm movie man Eric Houston, and I'm here today to tell you all about Superman, the Man of Steel, and specifically his life on the big and small screens. Now, Superman was born, if you can say that, on April the 18th, 1938, the star of the very first issue of Action Comics. He was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the Jewish sons of immigrants who met as small boys in Ohio. As they grew older, the shy friends became interested in stories about science fiction and began publishing a fanzine aptly titled Science Fiction. One issue of which featured a story about a bald man bent on taking over the world. The boys named their villain Superman. While that story didn't really take off, the boys, now 20, liked the name and began creating a new Superman who they saw as being the star of a newspaper strip that Siegel would write and Shuster would draw. No longer a villain, their new heroic creation drew on the biblical story of Moses, replacing the basket in the River Nile with a rocket ship fleeing the doomed planet of Krypton. Under Earth's yellow sun, Superman would develop amazing powers, like the ability to jump long distances and use them to protect the weak. For the look of the character, Shuster turned to the movies, modeling Superman after Douglas Fairbanks Sr., and his alter ego, mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent, after Harold Lloyd. Superman's love interest, crusading reporter Lois Lane, meanwhile, was modeled after Siegel's future wife, Joanne Carter. The newspapers weren't buying, though, and Siegel and Shuster needed money to help their families. So they pivoted to the still nascent medium of comic books and sold two stories to National Publishing, which would later be called DC Comics. Shuster was so poor that he drew one story on discarded brown wrapping paper and the other on the back of a disused roll of wallpaper. The stories were successful enough that National decided to try out Superman as the lead feature in their new anthology magazine. Superman was an instant hit, guaranteeing Siegel and Shuster years of work creating numerous stories and setting the format for all of the costumed adventurers who would follow. Long before the pair realized their character's popularity, though, they sold him to DC Comics for a mere $130. While the pair would maintain lucrative comics careers for some time, they didn't make a fraction of the money that Superman brought in for the publisher. Over the years, there would be numerous legal challenges and campaigns. But for the moment at least, things between DC and the Siegel and Shuster estates appear to have ended amicably. And the pair's names appear in every comic book and on every TV or movie screen that features the Man of Steel or any of his family of characters. Superman's adventures continued to be popular throughout the 1940s, often still drawn and written by Siegel and Shuster. This led to the demand for even more Superman stories and a second monthly comic book titled simply Superman. It also led to a radio program that aired multiple times every week, accumulating some 2,000 episodes between 1940 and 1951. Bud Collyer became the first voice of Superman and Clark Kent, routinely changing the tenor of his voice to differentiate between the two.
Oh, gosh, you gotta do something. You just...
All right, wait a minute. Where did they take him? Do you know?
Well, I mean, they said something about going to the Bend. Jeepers,
The
Mr.
Bend?
Kent.
The River Bend?
I don't know. I just heard him say the Bend. Listen, somebody better do something.
I'll do everything I can. Goodbye. Off with these clothes. After those rotten hate-mongers. That's Superman. Now, if only I'm not too late to stop them.
In later years, Bud would become even more famous as a game show host, hosting shows like Beat the Clock and To Tell the Truth. Believe it or not, though, Bud did not want the public to know he was playing Superman. He was worried about typecasting, and DC and the radio network were both fine with it, as this allowed them to tell the audience that they were listening to the real Superman. Collyer ultimately outed himself, though, in Time magazine, after the show did a series of episodes about a multiracial orphanage being assaulted by hate groups. The show and the storyline received tons of mail praising the series and plenty complaining. Bud took to the pages of Time magazine to praise the show and its writers and to state how proud he was to be a part of it. This wasn't the only time that the Superman radio show tackled racism in America. After World War II, the Ku Klux Klan started to see a sharp rise in membership and was steadily growing more powerful and more influential. During this time, a man named Stetson Kennedy infiltrated the Klan, learning their rituals and secrets, but he was having trouble getting the information to the public. He finally approached the producers of Superman, hoping the popular show might help him give the Klan a black eye. The producers were only too happy to oblige. World War II was over, and Nazis as villains had become passé. They were looking for new villains for Superman to fight, and the Klan fit perfectly. Over several weeks, Superman fought the Klan as the story shared real-life Klan rituals and passwords, many of which were ridiculous.
We're going to get rid of every foreigner in this country. Everyone who thinks, acts, and looks different from us. Anybody who tries to stop us will get the same thing you're getting. Okay, boys, that's the...
No, the man's mad. Absolutely mad.
And we're through, Chief. This is it.
Harry,
Emmett.
as Grand Avenger of the Clan of the Fiery Cross, you will now perform your sacred duty. Here's a gun. Take care of those two.
Okay.
Here it comes, Mr. White.
Easy, Jim, easy.
All right, you dirty punks. Here's where you get yours.
You mean here's where you get yours?
What the-
I'll take that gun, and you take this.
Superman, Chief, it's Superman.
Thank heaven.
Hello, Jim. I'll just get these ropes off you and Mr.
Oh,
White.
thank heaven you've arrived just in
And
time.
how?
The show robbed the Klan of their mystery and allure, and recruitment dropped precipitously as the Klan became a national laughingstock, with some listeners even showing up at rallies to jeer the Klansmen. These shows, known as the Clan of the Fiery Cross, have been called, quote, the greatest single contributor to the weakening of the Ku Klux Klan in post-war America, and was arguably the first time the fictional Superman defeated a real-life foe. Sponsored by Kellogg's and airing on ABC weekdays between 5 and 6, the show quickly became a popular after-school listening for America's children. And it soon occupied a prime place in the Superman mythos, introducing a number of characters and situations that are now synonymous with the Man of Steel. It was on the radio and not in the comics that we first met Perry White and Jimmy Olsen. Both began appearing on the radio in 1940, probably to give the show more voices and to make it more interesting for listeners. And they wouldn't make their comic book debuts until the next year. Nowadays, they are integral parts of the Superman legend. The familiar Look Up in the Sky opening debuted here too.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman.
Kryptonite, Superman's primary weakness, also originated on the radio show, where it was created not only to give Superman's villains the chance to be able to one-up the Man of Steel, but to give Bud Collyer some much-needed time off. As any time Superman was exposed to kryptonite, the character, and Bud, could disappear from the show for a couple of days.
I got you now. I want that box. Come on, give it to me. Oh, great Scott, he dropped it. The kryptonite rolled out.
You jumped out of the sky, you did. I seen you. I know you are. You're Superman.
The kryptonite. Put it back in the lead box.
As popular as the radio show was, audiences still wanted to see Superman on the silver screen. And they finally got their chance in 1941 with Superman, the first in a series of 17 animated shorts produced by Fleischer Studios, which had had great success with characters like Betty Boop and Popeye. These cartoons were lavishly produced, the first installment costing $50,000 and taking some 6 months to make. The cartoon featured the Fleischers' rotoscope animation technique, wherein real actors were filmed and their movements traced in animation, giving the characters a lifelike feel. In an apparent nod to the popularity of the radio show, the Fleischers copied the introduction whole cloth.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. The infant of Krypton is now the Man of Steel, Superman!
Bud Collyer was once again cast to voice the Man of Steel, and producers also hired St. Paul native Joan Alexander, who had voiced Lois Lane on the radio, to once again play the courageous reporter. Like Collyer, Joan would later enjoy a great deal of game show fame as a regular panelist on Names the Same. Rounding out the cast of this first installment was Jack Mercer, the longtime voice of Popeye, playing an evil scientist.
How is that for a story, Miss Lane?
Flash! True to his threat, the mad scientist, whose warnings have held the city in a grip of terror, went on his rampage of destruction on the stroke of midnight. The deadly impact of his mysterious ray smashed the famous Tower Bridge, hurling cars and pedestrians into the river below. The police have warned everyone to remain in their homes.
This looks like a job for Superman.
Superman was an immediate hit, and was even nominated for a Best Short Subject Oscar. Like the radio show, the cartoons had a lasting impact on the Superman story. In the comics, Superman could only jump long distances, hence leap tall buildings in a single bound. But the Fleischers thought it looked silly to have Superman just jumping everywhere, and decided instead to make him fly. DC not only signed off on the plan, but was ultimately so pleased that they brought the ability to the comics, where Superman has flown ever since. Superman's live-action debut came in 1948 in a 15-part serial from Columbia Pictures. Thrilling and action-packed, the series was, in many ways, a fitting way to debut Superman in the flesh. Even so, the crew had a great deal of trouble creating convincing special effects for the flying sequences, and ultimately resorted to animation. Like the cartoons and the radio series, the Superman serial was extremely popular, and was booked by a number of theaters who didn't normally bother to show serials. It also spawned a sequel, 1950's Atom Man vs. Superman. Lois Lane was played by Minneapolis native Noel Neill, and Jimmy Olsen was played by Tommy Bond, who had also played Butch from the Our Gang or Little Rascals film series. Kirk Alyn stars as Superman, but almost didn't get the part when he showed up to the audition sporting a full goatee. Like Collyer, Allen played the role uncredited, with producers telling audiences that the movie starred the real-life Superman. Because of this, both Collyer and Allen stayed out of the limelight of Superman's success for better or worse. It would be another 2 years before an actor would truly become inseparable from the role in the eyes of the American public. That actor was George Reeves.
No, I don't believe it.
You will, Blinky. You will.
You're just wasting your ammunition, Blinky. Sit down. Hey, let me out. Let me out!
Another few seconds and it would have been too late, Superman.
Well, it wasn't, Miss Lane, and that's what counts. What time is it?
Just about 12:30.
Well, I can't wait for the police. I have an appointment date. Excuse me.
You won't have to worry about riding your pals now, Blinky.
Born in Iowa in 1914, George made his screen debut as one of Scarlett's suitors in the opening sequences of Gone with the Wind.
Branson's doing talking, you handsome old thing. Oh, no, you're not. I don't mean to say that. I'm mad at you.
What have we done, honey?
You haven't been near me all day, and I wore this old dress just because I thought you liked it. I was counting on eating barbecue with you two.
Well, you are, Scarlett. Of course you are, honey.
Oh, I never can make up my mind which of you two's the handsomer. I was awake all last night trying to figure it out.
From there, he appeared in a number of low-budget films and series alongside such actors and characters as Hopalong Cassidy, Merle Oberon, and Claudette Colbert. He was drafted in 1943 and assigned to the Air Force. When the war ended, though, Reeves returned to a very different Hollywood, one that was making far fewer serials and two-reelers. He was forced to begin appearing in even lower budget fare and even began digging cesspools to make ends meet. Yet, when Superman came calling, Reeves was reluctant. Like a lot of actors of his day, he saw TV as beneath him. Still, needs must, and Reeves ultimately donned the famous blue tights for Superman and the Mole Men.
You're not going to shoot those little creatures. In the first place, they haven't done you any harm. In the second place, they may be radioactive. If they fall in the reservoir, they may contaminate the water supply. Save your time and ammunition, Benson.
Superman and the Mole Men was an independent theatrical film, a first for Superman or any other DC Comics character. Designed in part to help sell the weekly syndicated TV series to local affiliates and to ramp up public anticipation, the one-hour movie would later be edited down into 2 half-hour episodes of the regular TV series. Co-starring with Reeves is Phyllis Coates as a tough-as-nails Lois Lane.
Well, it certainly is a gay and cheerful little place, isn't it? Silsby, population 1,430, home of the world's deepest oil well. Big deal.
It's too bad Craig doesn't like to drive at night. Otherwise, we'd have been on our way to Dallas by now.
Where is Craig?
Turned in. Said he was all worn out from this afternoon. Well, he left us the keys to the car in case you want to go anywhere.
Oh, fine. Well, at least I can say I've seen Silsby. Couldn't have lived without it.
Phyllis was a veteran of vaudeville and movie serials and early television, with dozens of credits to her name. When it came time to transition to the regular TV series, she received equal billing with Reeves at George's behest. The entire team began work on the regular series, The Adventures of Superman, almost immediately after completing the movie. Joining Reeves and Coates were Jack Larson as Jimmy Olsen. The former partner of actor Montgomery Clift, Larson would later go on to become a prolific writer, particularly on the subject of classical music. And John Hamilton as Perry White, the curmudgeonly editor who constantly exclaimed, "Great Caesar's Ghost." As an actor, Hamilton appeared in more than 300 movies and television shows. The first season of The Adventures of Superman featured darker film noir-style stories of Superman battling gangsters, many of whom died at the end of the episode. As the producers became aware of the show's extreme popularity with children, they began softening storylines in the second season and adding more science fiction elements. Another change in the second season was with Lois Lane. Phyllis Coates had made other commitments between seasons and was no longer available. And so Noel Neill, who had starred opposite Kirk Alyn in the Superman serials, took over, presenting a softer, more compassionate Lois.
Clark, aren't they the cutest puppies you ever saw?
They sure are, but did you ever see a puppy that wasn't cute?
I wish the shop was open so I could hold one.
You've done the next best thing. You've had me standing in front of that window for the last, 20 minutes? Yes.
Clark, look.
Oh, no, Lois. Do you realize this is the 18th window you stopped at? And furthermore, do you realize that according to my calculations, at this rate, it'll take me until the middle of next week to walk you home?
If you're in a hurry, I'm sure I can manage alone.
I'll tell you what. You look in half the windows, and I'll look in the other half. That way it'll just take us half as long.
But you don't understand. Shopping is an art.
The second season also debuted Kellogg's as a sponsor and included a number of Superman-themed Kellogg's commercials.
Great Caesar's ghost. What's holding him up? You know I can't work without a good breakfast.
Chief, Jimmy's bringing a box of Kellogg's Sugar Smacks.
All the more reason for hurrying. Confound it, that boy knows I like those new Sugar Smacks.
And he knows I do, too. And that's a cinch.
Well, here I am. Young man, if you spilled those new Sugar Smacks, you're fired.
Every member of the main cast participated in these commercials except for Noel Neill. Producers were concerned that audiences would get the wrong idea seeing Lois Lane in Clark Kent's apartment first thing in the morning. The series Adventures of Superman ran on television from 1953 to 1958 and aired in black and white. The final 3 seasons were filmed in color, but were not shown that way until many years later in reruns. To facilitate the black and white shooting, Reeves' costume was originally made in gray and brown, which photographed better in black and white. While episodes were shot quickly and efficiently in the style of movie serials, much of the cast had trouble finding other work while the show was on the air, both because of typecasting and because of an unusually restrictive contract which forbid the actors from participating in movies and television shows with long production schedules. This greatly frustrated Reeves, who was able to take some solace from the show's popularity with children. In fact, the show proved so suddenly successful that a surprised cast soon realized they could make additional money through personal appearances. And Reeves began to appear in costume in a variety of different live and television appearances, including a sort of cabaret act with Noel Neill, a singing appearance on The Tony Bennett Show, and a famous guest spot on I Love Lucy.
Okay. Come on in here right now! Can you teach me to fly?
Of all the crazy things that you've done in the 15 years that we've been married, this has really...
Cargill, do you mean to say that you've been married to her for 15 years?
Yeah, 15 years!
Then they call me Superman.
In 1959, the cast and crew were preparing for another season when tragedy struck. On June the 16th, George Reeves was found dead in his home from a gunshot wound to the head. Police at the time declared it a suicide. Others, then and now, believed Reeves was murdered, possibly in relation to his longtime relationship with Toni Mannix, the wife of MGM general manager Eddie Mannix, who was believed to have mob ties. The events were recently dramatized in the film Hollywoodland, which starred Ben Affleck as George Reeves. The future of Superman had actually already been called into question a few months earlier due to the unexpected death of John Hamilton, who died of heart failure. While producers were considering replacing Hamilton, it would be much more difficult to recast the Man of Steel, and instead they began debating other ways to continue the still popular series. One idea was to change the name to The Adventures of Jimmy Olsen and shift the focus to Jack Larson's character, adding in small elements of stuntmen in the Superman costume or stock footage of George Reeves. Larson himself nixed the idea, calling it sick. Another idea was to revive Super Pup, a pilot of which had been filmed in 1958, using the Superman sets and a cast of little people playing anthropomorphic dogs.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Wow!
In 1961, producers tried another new pilot, The Adventures of Superboy, starring Johnny Rockwell.
Superboy? Be right with you, Chief.
All right.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Sure.
But what are you going to use it for? Just this. As you know from what you've studied in school, diamonds are nothing more or less than pure carbon, which has been subjected to tremendous heat and pressure. And, of course, coal is carbon. So, I subject this piece of coal to super pressure, and in a moment I've created synthetic diamonds.
None of these ideas stuck, though, temporarily ending Superman's time on the screen. Then, in 1966, Superman came to another medium altogether, the Broadway musical, with It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman.
It's funny that only a moment ago, pow, bam, zonk, I doubted myself, and all that was right. But now I see the light.
The musical was well received and even got 3 Tony nominations, but for whatever reason, audiences weren't interested, and the show closed after 3.5 months and 129 performances. Bob Holliday starred as Superman and relished in inviting children backstage for autographs. Tony and Grammy winner Jack Cassidy, the father of David and Sean Cassidy, played one of the play's antagonists, and the production also featured Linda Lavin, TV's Alice. The play has seen a handful of revivals over the years, with casts that have included Richard Kind and Charles Nelson Riley. The clips you've seen today actually come from a 1975 television version, which featured Leslie Ann Warren as Lois Lane, Alan Ludden as Perry White, as well as Kenny Mars and Loretta Swit.
Why can't the strongest man in the world be the happiest man in the world? Why does the strongest man in the world have the heaviest heart in the world?
While the Man of Steel failed to take flight on the Great White Way, he continued to appeal to children everywhere, both on the comics page and in a new series of different animated adventures, where he was once again voiced, at least initially, by Bud Collyer.
It's Superman!
But by the late 1970s, he was primed for his silver screen comeback.
His name is Kal-El. He will call himself Clark Kent. But the world will know him as Superman. This year, Superman brings you the gift of flight. Superman, the movie.
At the time, superhero films were considered passé. The specter of the 1960s camp classic Batman show loomed over every possible revival, and no one thought any superhero movie, let alone Superman, could be a success. Everyone, that is, except the Salkinds. The Russian-Jewish father-son duo of Alexander and Ilya Salkind, who had produced Orson Welles' The Trial and pioneered double filming by shooting The Three Musketeers and The Four Musketeers simultaneously, which incidentally led to new SAG regulations that prevented actors from being unfairly paid for a single movie while actually shooting two movies at the same time. Far from a campy comedy, the Salkinds wanted to make Superman a big-budget epic, filled with big-name talent both in front of and behind the camera. To pen the script, they hired Godfather author Mario Puzo, contracting him to write two movies which, like The Musketeers, would be filmed simultaneously. And while Puzo's name would help get the project off the ground and give it early credibility, the screenplay would later be heavily rewritten by James Bond veteran Tom Mankiewicz, who lessened the campier aspects of Puzo's script, which would have included a cameo from TV's Kojak, and emphasized the relationship between Clark Kent and Lois Lane. Oscar winner and Star Wars and Jaws composer John Williams was commissioned to create a truly iconic score. And the Salkinds stacked their cast with a true murderer's row of movie royalty. For Lex Luthor, they hired Gene Hackman, who had recently won an Oscar for The French Connection.
I told you. It's kryptonite, Superman. Little souvenir for the old hometown. I've spared no expense to make you feel right at home.
You were great in your day, Superman. But it just stands to reason. When it came time to cash in your chips, it's old. A diseased maniac would be your banker.
Besides Hackman, the cast included Ned Beatty, star of Deliverance, and an Oscar nominee for Network; Jackie Cooper, a former Little Rascal, and at one time, the youngest actor ever nominated for an Oscar; and Glenn Ford, a Golden Globe winner, and the star of classic films like Gilda and The Big Heat. But easily the biggest name attached to the film, and the first one cast, was none other than legendary actor and recent Academy Award winner for The Godfather, Marlon Brando, who would be playing Superman's Kryptonian father, Jor-El.
You will travel far, my little Kal-El. But we will never leave you, even in the face of our death. the richness of our lives shall be yours.
The Salkinds saw Brando's casting as an absolute necessity for giving their film the necessary clout and attracting the other actors. But Brando didn't come cheap. The Salkinds paid him a record-setting $3.7 million for 2 weeks of shooting. But Brando proved difficult to work with. He refused to learn his lines, requiring cue cards to be secreted around the set, and resisted showing up to work, at one point even suggesting that maybe his character, being an alien, could instead be portrayed as a green briefcase or even a bagel that Brando could later voice over. Casting the Man of Steel himself proved even more difficult, and as that search went on, the Salkinds set their sights on a director, hiring Goldfinger director Guy Hamilton, who planned to film the movie in Italy. But when the Salkinds moved the production to England, Hamilton couldn't go, and so the Salkinds turned to Omen director Richard Donner. Donner came onto the production as the Salkinds were still trying to cast Superman, whittling their way through a who's who's list of Hollywood's biggest stars, including Paul Newman and Robert Redford. But Donner argued that it would be hard to believe that such an established personality could fly or stop bullets or any of Superman's other remarkable abilities. He felt the movie needed an unknown to play the Man of Steel. But while they were searching through unknown actors, they inevitably came across only actors who looked the part but couldn't act, or actors who could really act but didn't look like Superman. At one point, things became so desperate that they even auditioned Ilya Salkind's wife's dentist for the role of Superman. When producers eventually met Christopher Reeve, the Salkinds were at first reluctant, feeling that Reeves didn't have the necessary experience and that, to their mind at least, didn't really feel like Superman. Still, they eventually relented and allowed for a sort of slapdash Superman costume to be patched together so Reeve could film a screen test.
Now, you really shouldn't smoke, you know.
Lung cancer?
Well, not yet, thank goodness.
With Christopher Reeve, producers finally found an actor who not only looked the part, but could also act, and who could play both Superman and Clark Kent, bringing a sort of understated nobility to the former, and a Cary Grant-style charm and consternation to the latter.
Just a minute. Now, I realize, of course, that times are tough for some these days, but this isn't the answer. You can't solve society's problems with a gun.
You know something, buddy? You're right. I'm going to turn over a new leaf.
Good for you, sir. That's the spirit. See, he doesn't really want to hurt anybody.
Uh-huh.
This, Donner believed, was someone that audiences would think could fly. Christopher Reeve trained in acting at Cornell and Juilliard, where he was close with fellow student Robin Williams, and appeared in the Broadway play A Matter of Gravity alongside Katharine Hepburn, with whom he became close. During rehearsals for that play, Reeves subsisted on a diet of coffee and candy bars, and during opening night, when he stepped out onto the stage to say his first line, fainted dead away from malnutrition and exhaustion. He made his screen debut on the soap Love of Life.
Well, actually, I helped him come home ahead of time.
Well, wait a minute. Now, let me get this straight here. Now, everyone's always figured that David walked out of that hospital on his own. Now, are you saying that you helped him to get out? How? How did you do that?
No, you have to understand why.
That and a single submarine movie were the grand total of Reeves' screen experience before being cast as Superman. Lois Lane proved equally hard to cast, with practically every young actress in New York and Hollywood auditioning for the role.
Well, let's start with your vital
Statistics?
Thank you. Now then, is it true that you can see through anything?
Yes, pretty much.
Uh-huh. And you are totally impervious to pain?
Well, so far.
Stand up, Clark.
What?
Come here. Come on. Come on. That's it. Come on.
What?
Now look at yourself. You see that?
Yes.
It's a handsome, aggressive, dynamite guy who can do anything he wants to do.
Well,
It's you that's standing in your way, Clark, not me.
Oh, yeah? How?
Well, if for one thing, you slouch. Go.
Yes, I did make a mistake, Clark. I risked my life instead of yours.
Lois? Lois, don't be crazy.
And don't bother falling down, because you're just going to have to stand up again.
Lois, don't be insane. Lois.
It is you. I must have known that for the longest time.
You realize, of course, if you'd been wrong, Clark Kent would have been killed.
With a blank? Gotcha.
But the part ultimately went to Margot Kidder, playing the role as a modern, confident 70s woman. Superman the movie had one of the biggest budgets of any movie made up to that point, and required almost 2 years of shooting. Shooting scenes for both movies at once as planned was difficult, sometimes confusing, and often grueling work. The flight sequences in particular were tedious and painful, but were absolutely key to the film's success. Flight has long been key to the audience's idea of Superman, and as of yet, no screen Superman or any other person had convincingly flown. Part of the mantra of Superman the movie was that it would only work if audiences truly believed that Superman was flying. Still, this was a difficult task for the effects crew to create, and they worked tirelessly, devising numerous methods to give Superman flight depending on the needs of a given scene and setting, including the use of cables and wires, a catapult, blue screen technology, and specially built gimbals. These scenes required Christopher Reeve to stay on set for a full year after the rest of the cast had finished, just to film the flying scenes. Donner gave a lot of credit to Reeve himself, whose physicality in flight truly brought the effect together. During the lengthy and often difficult production, the cast and crew became a family, with Donner seen as the caring father. To this day, many of those who worked on Superman still talk about his deft hand and individual approach with his actors. Unfortunately, his relationship with the sometimes domineering Salkinds was not as good, and in fact, could be downright combative, with the Salkinds frequently playing mind games with the director, such as berating him for being over budget or behind schedule, even though they had never even told him what the budget for the film was or given him a defined schedule. Eventually, the Salkinds brought in A Hard Day's Night and Three Musketeers director Richard Lester as a sort of advisor on the film. But the message was clear. The Salkinds wanted Donner to quit and to replace him with Lester. Donner persevered for some time, though, and was able to finish the first movie, but was ultimately not allowed to finish filming Superman 2. Superman the movie premiered at Christmas of 1978 to enormous success, quickly becoming Warner Brothers' highest-grossing film to date. 3 sequels would follow. Superman 2, the biggest success and the best regarded of the bunch, saw Superman battle a cadre of Kryptonian criminals in a film that, amongst other things, pioneered movie product placement. Superman 3 was a strange affair that co-starred Richard Pryor. And Superman 4, produced now by the notoriously low-budget Cannon Films, was reportedly a miserable experience for practically everyone involved. Superman 4 was actually based on a script idea from Reeve himself, who continued to appear in numerous films throughout the 80s and 90s, always taking his work very seriously, so much so that he often turned down lucrative leading man roles because he didn't feel right for the part in films like Splash, Fatal Attraction, Lethal Weapon, and Romancing the Stone. Reeve was also an active pilot and equestrian, beginning to ride while filming the movie Anna Karenina and growing to love it so much that he even became a competitive rider. During an event in Virginia in May of 1995, Reeve fell from his horse and suffered a terrible, paralyzing spinal injury. It was at this point that those who knew him say that Reeve became a real-life Superman, as he became an international inspiration, not only continuing to act, but becoming a vocal and tireless advocate for others with spinal cord injuries.
But the point is, we're all one great big family, and any one of us could get hurt at any moment. So that taught me a really big lesson about complacency. You know, we should never walk by somebody who's in a wheelchair and be afraid of them or think of them as a stranger. Could be us. In fact, it is us.
Reeve passed away in October of 2004 from an adverse reaction to medication. Throughout his life, Reeve continued to look back fondly at his time playing Superman. And it's a fitting tribute that these two unflappable symbols of goodness should forever be linked. Of course, Reeve's Superman films weren't the last time Superman graced the screen. On television there was Superboy, Lois and Clark, Smallville, and several Superman cartoons, as well as a brand new show entitled Superman and Lois. His cousin Supergirl has appeared on the big and small screens, and after a couple of misfires, including one that would have seen Nick Cage don the famous red cape, Superman himself has starred in Superman Returns, The Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and, most recently, Justice League. It's been nearly 80 years since Superman first leapt from the comics page to the silver screen, and you can be certain that his never-ending battle will continue for as long as the young and the young at heart are there to enjoy them. I want to thank you for joining me this evening for this look at Superman in the movies. I hope you've enjoyed it. Superman has certainly long been one of my favorite characters, and I have always enjoyed seeing him up there on the big screen, and I'm always interested to see what's next for the Man of Steel. Please, if you liked this class, please like the video, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Maybe in the comments you can put what actor you would like to see be the next Superman, or even an actor who you think could have played Superman in the past. You can also email me at eric@northmetrotv.com if you'd like to get in touch with me directly, or if you'd like to join our email list so that you can be apprised of any new classes before they're released. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in and joining me tonight. Please visit MovieManEric.com if you're interested in other classes. Visit the YouTube page. We have a ton of great classes, both full-length classes like this and special mini classes, including a recent one about the Fantastic Four that you might enjoy. In the meantime, I'll hope to see you next time, but please stay safe, and thanks again for watching.
Look! Up in the sky! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman!
Superman, rocketed to Earth as an infant when the distant planet Krypton exploded. And who, disguised as Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for the Daily Planet, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and freedom with superpowers far beyond those